This CNN headline made me do a double take. New archaeological discovery verifies history, quote, as told in the Bible. For the Colson Center, I'm John Stonestreet. This is Breakpoint. In Jeremiah 15, God tells the prophet that, quote, I will make Jerusalem an object of horror to all the kingdoms of the earth because of what Manasseh, son of Hezekiah, king of Judah, did in Jerusalem. Now, can you imagine God saying that he's going to make you an object of horror? Well, as God does, he kept his word. The wealth of Jerusalem's inhabitants was given as plunder to invaders only after they were starved, put to the sword, and enslaved. Now, of course, passages like this one, in which God speaks, are rarely taken seriously, much less historically, in academic circles. And, among other things, scholars have long assumed that the real Jerusalem was pretty insignificant, closer in size and splendor to Dayton, Tennessee than Dayton, Ohio, and not even close to being the Iron Age equivalent of Paris or New York. In other words, many scholars long assumed that the stories of Jerusalem's rise and subsequent destruction were overinflated, self-serving myths intended to serve theological or political purposes. And then people started to dig. A recent story at CNN described an archaeological dig on Mount Zion and the findings of things like ash deposits, arrowheads, and broken pieces of pots and lamps. Now, that might not sound like much, but to trained archaeologists and historians, it speaks volumes. By itself, ash can be evidence of anything from ovens to burning trash heaps, or it can be evidence of an immense conflagration associated with an invasion. What archaeologists found with this ash strongly suggests the invasion interpretation. As one historian put it, nobody has arrowheads in their domestic refuse. And then there was this find, a piece of jewelry which appears to be a tassel or earring with a bell-shaped upper portion. Just as nobody has arrowheads in their domestic trash, nobody abandons golden jewelry. The most reasonable explanation is that these findings reveal some kind of devastation and destruction. But what kind of devastation and destruction could it have been? Well, the arrowheads provide the answer, a type known as a Scythian arrowhead. These were fairly commonplace in battle sites from the 7th and 6th centuries BC and known to be used by Babylonian warriors. Jerusalem was destroyed by Babylonians in 587 and 586 BC. Thus, CNN's headline, archaeologists find evidence of Babylonian conquest of Jerusalem as told in the Bible. Not only do these findings corroborate the Babylonian conquest, they back up what the Bible says about life in Jerusalem in the decades leading up to the conquest. Most notably, the project director told CNN the jewelry is clear indication of the wealth of the inhabitants of the city at the time of the siege. Turns out, Jerusalem had some wealth worth plundering after all. Now, I love telling about these sorts of discoveries on Breakpoint, especially since the past quarter century, archaeology is constantly finding evidence for the historicity of biblical narratives that were long assumed to be myths or legends or complete fabrications. We've gone from Kings David and Solomon being fictional characters to being glorified tribal chieftains to, hey, what do you know? Pretty big deals who left evidence of their reigns throughout the region. The confirmation is not only gratifying, it's extraordinary. After all, no other ancient text, especially those that offer the origin stories of other religions, nations, or regions, is even remotely equivalent to the Bible in its accuracy. For example, Rome was either founded by Romulus after he killed his twin brother Remus, or founded by refugees from Troy after the events described by Homer. These two stories can't be reconciled, but then again, they're not intended to be actual history. But in contrast, the biblical story of a distinct people and their relationship with the God who personally intervenes in their and in our history to effect his purposes, well, that's a remarkably coherent story. And discoveries, like the one on Mount Zion, reveal that it's a historically accurate story as well. For Breakpoint, I'm John Stonestreet.